I'm going to introduce Gene McNary here. Uh, Gene grew up and didn't go to high school here, so we don't have a high school connection. But he did grow up in Muncie, Indiana, correct? And he got his BS in finance at Indiana University, and then he got his law degree there. And then he was assistant public defender here from 1963 to 65. And then he was St. Louis prosecuting attorney from 1966 to 74. And then he was county executive. Did the same thing that Sam Page is doing right now, but he didn't have COVID to deal with. And he did that from 1974 to 1989. And then under Reagan, he took care of the border from 89 to 93.
No, that was under George H.W. Bush.
Oh, was that under George?
Yeah, I followed Reagan's.
You followed Reagan, okay. And then I didn't know this about Gene, but he was an immigration lawyer from 1994 to 2006. And then he went into the gambling business and became director of the Missouri Gaming Commission from 2006 to 2010. And just last year, he was the commissioner of the chairman of the Charter Commission here, trying to put St. Louis City and St. Louis County back together. We're still trying that. It's been going on for a long time.
Good luck.
He's going to get it done. With that, I'll let Gene take over.
All right, thank you, Steve, and appreciate everybody joining in. I recognize some of you guys that are lifelong learning participants and experts, but I told Steve and Judith that I did a 4-week, 8-hour program for LLI, which was called Immigration in a Nutshell. Now, in 45 minutes, we're going to call this Immigration Quick and Dirty because I'm going to try to give you the highlights and a basic structure that'll put you in a position to at least understand some of the things that come down, because immigration has a lot of hot topics right now. And if you know some of the basics, I think it'll put you in a position to understand it better. First, I'll start with how you get into the United States. And there are about 5 ways. First of all, there's a non-immigrant visa, and that's somebody who comes in temporarily for a specific purpose at a specific period of time. Then there's the immigrant visa, and that's somebody who comes in to get a green card. Green card is an LPR, lawful permanent resident, and I'll go into that. Then we have refugees. We're the most diverse nation. You know, that was our history and our heritage. We don't have ethnic purity, and we have gone out of our way for a long period of time to bring people in who are refugees, which is defined as a well-founded fear of persecution based on race, religion, national origin, political views, and a few others. And refugees are under that definition, if somebody gets into the United States and fits that persecution definition, then they claim asylum. Same definition, refugee and asylum, same well-founded fear of persecution for these basic reasons. Then the other one, which is somewhat controversial because it's one of the few things I disagree with Trump on, diversity is a lottery, and that was started on my watch by Kennedy, who wanted to get more Irish into the country. And so that's the lottery, and it's handled by the State Department. 50,000 visas, and these are immigrant visas. They become green card holders. 50,000 are issued a year, and there are about 5 million who apply for them. So the odds are 100 to 1. It's not like the lottery that you buy at the store. That's $1 million to 1 or something like that. So, and I've represented some of those people who hit on the lottery. Um, and the reason I disagree with Trump, he said we don't need that, and maybe we don't anymore because we are diverse. We have other ways for people to get in. But I found that a lot of those people, if they went to the trouble of signing up, then they were pretty solid people. You know, we didn't get terrorists and people that we wouldn't want. Um, so those are the basic ways that you come in. Then when I was commissioner of INS, which was Immigration Naturalization Service, uh, I had internal enforcement and the Border Patrol and the paperwork part of it all under my command. Now that was paperwork, meaning processing. We had regional centers where we processed people for all the non-immigrant visas as well as immigrant visas. And it was all the legal part. Internal enforcement and Border Patrol had to do with trying to keep people who shouldn't be here out. Now that was completely restructured in 2003 after 9/11. And so now it is CIS does the paperwork, the regional centers, that's Custom Immigration Services. There's a Customs and Border Protection, which happens to be customs officers as well as the Border Patrol. And then ICE is Immigration Customs Enforcement. And they do internal, and you've heard about these agents, internal enforcement, trying to remove people who shouldn't be here. Now, it's important to know that the immigration courts, when you hear about the immigration courts, these are not freestanding courts like the district, circuit courts, magistrate courts. These are a part of the Justice Department. They're administrative agencies. And as with other administrative agencies, there is an appeal to the regular judicial system from those courts. But by and large, those courts are under the Justice Department, and it's all handled by them. That when I became county executive, commissioner of INS, there were some people, including Steve Legomsky. Some of you know him, who tutored me and taught immigration law at Washington University. And Steve and a few of his friends felt as though something should be done about asylum because the district directors at the various district offices would determine asylum. They really didn't understand the criteria that was required. They weren't in a position to adjudicate. And so I set up an asylum corps, and we trained people in determining whether somebody had a well-founded fear of persecution and met the standard. And those asylum corps are still there today. And somebody who claims asylum goes before one of those agencies, still all a part of the Justice Department. They go before the agencies, and there's a determination as to whether or not they meet the well-founded fear standard. Now, the agencies are, as I mentioned, they're district directors. Kansas City has a district director, and St. Louis had an officer in charge. We were actually in St. Louis a part of the Kansas City district. Then the Border Patrol had what was called sectors, and there would be a sector chief, Border Patrol chief in each of those sectors, and they really well, they worked with others, but they were important for the ports of entry, and ports of entry were vitally important. You know, that's where we bring people in, and you're supposed to come through the port of entry and not across that border. All right, now that's kind of the structure, and let me go through the non-immigrant visas, because these are visas that are issued by the State Department in various parts of the world, and they, as I say, they come in for a specific purpose, for a specific period of time. And to run through these, Judith got bored when I told her about this, but you know, B is a visitor visa. C and D are basically cruise ship and airplane personnel that fly in and out, and they have those visas to authorize them. D is what D, I can't remember now, but E is employment or business visa that's temporary. Unlike other business visas that carry a green card, these are temporary. Somebody comes in, I think they've got 6 years, they stay, establish a business, and they're here for that purpose, and then after 6 years they have to leave unless they go ahead and apply for a green card and qualify for that. F is a student, and the student comes in. On my watch, we had a problem with students because some of them didn't ever go to school. They didn't even show up where the school was. And so there had to be some tightening of that. And I'll talk later. I'm going to save the last 15 minutes for current issues. And that's an issue now because students, you know, we've got the pandemic, and students coming in and going home, as you can imagine, create a new problem. So I'll talk about that. And then G is government. If they come in, if they're delegates or ambassadors, whatever, they and their family get a G visa. H, you know about, is H-1B, is a specialty occupation. And those are basically college graduates. Now I see where Melania Trump came in on H-1B. I don't understand that. She should have come in on a O or a P, which I'll get to. But she was a fashion model, and but most of them are computer science people. Silicon Valley, half of them are the H-1Bs go to Silicon Valley, and then I think, well, I don't know what else. The H-1Bs and H-2B is agriculture, and that's basically the guest worker, which is one of those issues that needs to be addressed. W. Bush the second was in favor of the guest worker, and we've always had guest workers, but this would kind of clarify it and provide some structure to the guest worker. So the H's are very important. Those are qualified people. There's an issue now, which I'll talk about later, on the H's, that Silicon Valley and others, computer science people, have brought them in and paid them less than American workers. And so the objective is to make sure, and even Biden has agreed with Trump, that we want to protect the American worker. So there's going to be a move to make sure that they are paid more. These people coming in are paid more, and we don't take advantage of the American worker. Then F, G, H, I can't recall what that is. J is another student, And J's have the obligation to go back after they've completed their studies for 3 years to impart what they've learned here in their home country. And there's a lot of J's, and that's been a excellent program. K visa is for fiance, somebody who comes in. My son just married a girl from Colombia, and brought her in on a K. They have to get married in 6 months, or she goes back. But that's so that they can get married here and stay here rather than go through all the other requirements. KL is a business visa for managers and executives, international companies that want to bring somebody in. It was kind of funny. Shenzhen, you've heard of. That's where the capital of the Communist Party is. And I went there and gave a talk on L's, which is totally capitalist, which I thought was kind of ironic. But anyway, then M is a individual who comes here, but not as a student, more of a trade school type of. And there's some indication that those pilots that bombed the World Trade Center and the Pentagon came in on M's and were trained to fly here. N, I don't remember. P is professional, is the way to remember that. We bring in professional people, baseball players, and probably that's what Melania should have come in on. I had a case with a baseball player by the name of Manny Ibar. I'll tell you this because it was kind of fun. Manny Ibar, this is 25 years ago, but Drew Bauer was one of the Cardinal owners, and he called me, said, we can't get we can't get Manny Ibar in because they won't let him in from Dominican consulate. And I said, what's the problem? He said, I don't know. Why don't you call him? And so I did. And they said, well, he came to the consulate with his wife. Well, it wasn't his wife. It was a girlfriend. And we told him, go get the girlfriend, bring her back. We'll give you a visa. Well, she had disappeared in New York. No way to find her. So I went to the commissioner of baseball and got a letter from him promising that they'd oversee this, make sure that they didn't get, they weren't abusing this professional visa to come in and play baseball. And so Drew had told me we got to get this guy in because he throws hard. But in any case, those are the athletes, and those are entertainers, performers, and a lot of other professional people. O is really outstanding. We bring people in, and I'll talk about this on immigrant visas. But we bring people in who are outstanding. If Nobel Prize winner, if we don't want them to be an immigrant, then they just come in for a temporary period of time. Probably entertainers that come in for a specific concert performance, they would get an O. R is religious. Q I missed. That's the Disney. Disney is interesting and unique from the standpoint of what they do. They bring people in from all over the world for, as a part of the Disney Magic Kingdom business. QR is religious. We bring religious clergy and people like that. ST, the rest of the alphabet is there, but that's enough to give you a flavor for those non-immigrant visas, specific purpose, specific period of time, and then they go back unless they transition to an immigrant visa, which means that they need an employer to sponsor them, unless number one, they're extraordinary. That means top of the line that they're experts, and Nobel Prize winners certainly is an example, but you don't have to. I brought a yoga master in, who was just outstanding. And, we made the case that he was extraordinary. And I had some jazz experts and some other people in their fields. And the way you make those cases is by showing the billings that they had and the articles written about them. And they come in straight up without labor certification, which goes to the number 2, which is exceptional. Some of those you don't go through labor certification if they serve the national interest. If they, we don't have any compunction about bringing people in and stealing people's brains, other countries' brains. It's part of what's made us outstanding. They tell me the computer chip was an Asian, really discovered or invented by an Asian Indian in the Defense Department. Skilled workers is the category number 3. That requires a labor certification, which is to say they go through a specific department in the labor department that will, and you have to show that no other American can do this job. And the way you do that is by advertising for the job. And if nobody can qualify, then you can go ahead and hire this skilled worker. Got labor certification. To give you an example, there's a place out on 70 around Wright City called Costello and Rui, or Rui and Costello. It's a Mexican restaurant. Well, I brought that Rui in, and I advertised. He had a special Mexican dish, so we advertised anybody make this special dish. Well, nobody could, and therefore then and I think you wait about 4 or 5 months for people to answer, and then you have to distinguish how they can't fill that job. No other American can do this particular job. So it was with computer science people. A lot of programs, and you've advertised for those people. Not many people can do all the programs that computer science person could do. Now, category 4 is religious. We bring clergy in or rabbis, whatever, imams, and they come in without going through labor certification. Nurses as well. Just because we had a shortage, we wound up with a lot of Filipino nurses. Then the 5th was the investor visa, and they created that on my watch. We talked about this earlier. The Hong Kong. They determined that Hong Kong would go back to the PRC. With that, a lot of Hong Kong people left, and the Canadians were smart enough to create this investor visa. And even today, half of Vancouver is Hong Kong. And those people came in and invested in Vancouver, and they got a Canadian green card. And so Kennedy and Simpson said we should do that, and we established this green card for investors, and they contribute $1 million, and they come in and create 10 jobs. Only if their investment has to create 10 jobs. If they invest in a underserved, depressed area, then it's a 500,000 investment. And then there was some fine tuning, but that was designed to take advantage and provide capital in our depressed areas and rural areas. And it's still working today. We've taken advantage of that, and a couple $1 billion has gone into investing in those areas. All right, now let me think. The refugee situation, as I told you, the refugees have come in on a definite, meet a definite criteria, and we've usually had around 80,000 a year and we reach out to those areas where there are persecuted people, and the consulates will identify them. There's a system. There's even a United Nations Department on Refugee Resettlement. When they come in, for example, the Soviet Jews that came in, Hias was there to help resettle those people. And I think you know that the Bosnians have been a major asset to St. Louis. There's a lady named Anna Crossland who really resettled those people and brought them in and did such a good job. You know, they were spread all over the country, and yet Anna did such a good job that they wrote their friends around, and we wound up with 70,000 Bosnians now, and they've really provided some stability to South St. Louis County, and other parts of the area. The refugee situation now has been cut back, really, and Trump's getting blamed for it, but it's along with travel restrictions and bringing people in from anywhere, you know, the visitors, the students. It's been a strain across the board on bringing people in for any reason, and so it is with the refugees as well. But I think that ultimately it'll go back to 80,000 probably. It's down to about 8. We're really being very circumspect about bringing anybody in, including the refugees. During my watch, we brought in over 125,000 those 3 years. But that was because of the Soviet breakup. All right, now, let me think, what else do I need on the basics? There was a Senate bill that really started under Obama, I think the first few years, when he had control of the Congress and could have moved it along. And my information is that he had reservations about it. But that bill would cover a lot of things, including expanding the H-1B, doing something about the Southwest border, which Trump has done unilaterally, and doing something about sanctuary cities. You know, sanctuary cities are hard to justify. It's a felony to harbor an illegal alien, and yet it's condoned to just take care of and make sure that the illegal aliens are not deported. There's been, well, let me the other issues. E-Verify in 1986 we had the Immigration IRCA Control Act, and we brought in a lot of we legalized people who were here illegally, and there were about 2 million of them. When I came in, we still had that legalization program, and we continued to legalize them, and they became citizens. Another part of that IRCA law was E-Verify, which is that you don't get a job here unless you show that you're eligible to work. E-Verify, though, even though it's been a success, it was not mandatory. And so one of the objectives would be to make that mandatory. The DREAM Act, DACA, is a part of it. But the hang up on that Senate Bill 5 was a pathway to citizenship for 11 million people, and that's still an issue. And it will be an issue in the future. My guess is that if the Democrats get control of the Senate, that will be a hot topic and somehow there will develop a pathway to citizenship for 11 million people. Uh, that's a tough one because people wait in line. Jay Shaw, I see, has signed up, and people, he'll tell you, the Asian Indians wait in line. A lot of people wait in line because we have a legal immigration system, and to legalize people who came in illegally and let them jump the queue is kind of hard to justify. All right, so now let me go to more recent events. Recently, there was an article where a judge in Chicago said that the law which requires a person who's going to get a green card, lawful permanent resident, the law that says that person can't be a burden on the United States or a public charge. The immigrants' rights people convinced that judge that that's really a wealth test. And so when you hear wealth test by those people, that's what they're talking about, is that we're not going to give green cards to people who have taken food stamps, are on Medicaid, have housing vouchers, and otherwise have become a charge to the United States. That's the issue, and so there's no question in my mind, but what the law is pretty clear that you're not supposed to be a public charge, and those people have been already taken care of. But we'll see a greater discussion on that in the future. Secondly, H-1B. I mentioned this. H-1B's employers are going to have to pay the H-1B immigrant, non-immigrant, more than a U.S. citizen. And that's obviously to protect the U.S. citizen so that we don't just bring in foreign workers and take away those jobs. Now, the one that's dear to my heart because it was created in 1990 on my watch is temporary protected status. The people who are here in the United States, and if they went back home, would be in harm's way, then we give them a temporary protected status. Now, that's not even an immigration standing, but we say to them, until it's safe for you to return home, you can stay. And these are cases that usually involve civil war or natural disasters. Now, remember, a refugee, well-founded fear of persecution based on race, nationality, or religion, it doesn't cover civil war or criminal activity or a national disaster. So we've moved in order to give temporary protected status to people from El Salvador, Haiti, Nicaragua, Sudan, Honduras, and Nepal. And there are those people here now. Now, there was a judge, Ninth Circuit, which is a very liberal circuit, that just ruled that TPS can come to an end, that conditions have changed, and that some of those people are going to have to go back to their country of origin. Interesting note, on my watch, there was a civil war in Liberia. And Liberia is in Africa, as you know, but you might not know that back before the Civil War, there was a move to send the slaves back to Africa. Well, a lot of those slaves went back and they went to Liberia. And INS, the feeling there, including me, was that these are early Americans. And we went out of our way to make sure that those people got TPS and were taken care of. I just thought that was a significant note. Now this judge said, rightfully so, that conditions have improved and it's going to be time for those people to come back. Interesting question to if you're born in the United States, and TPS is the best example. Is a child born to a TPS person who's just here of temporary protected status, is that child automatically a U.S. citizen? Now, I gave a talk of one of the lifelong learning things, and the guy got mad at me. He said, "What's not clear about the Constitution that says child born here is a U.S. citizen?" Well, what's not clear is that the wording is a child born here and subject to the parents subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. Now, does that extend to temporary protected status or visitors or people that are not really, that they have their own citizenship in another country? Or are they really subject to the jurisdiction of the United States? And why would they put that in there if any child, why wouldn't they just say any child born in the United States is an American citizen? That case is, I think, going to be decided by the Supreme Court because there has been the issue raised. Okay, now then, there's also going to be some discussion. Refugees, are we going to have fewer refugees? I think I already mentioned this. The number will go back up, and it would have, regardless of who the president is. There has been, when it comes to asylum, the people who come from Nicaragua and Central America and have come up through Mexico and want to come across our border, San Diego primarily, can they do that and claim asylum? Now, the answer is no. Anytime you come through another country, which in this case would be Mexico, you come through another country where you could have claimed asylum, then you're not eligible here. And there was an article about Brownsville. Brownsville is a border town, Texas, and the judge held that that they had to let those people, and they were unaccompanied minors, had to let them claim asylum. Well, that judge doesn't understand the law because we have summary exclusion and summary deportation. Somebody who's at the border, even an unaccompanied minor, and from what I read, it sounded as though these minors, they would send them back to their home country by plane and make sure that they were taken care of. Now, even going way back, unaccompanied minors have always come into the United States, and there are two agencies, Lutheran Services and Catholic Charities, who have just been outstanding humanitarian efforts beyond belief in taking care of some of these children. And you saw the issue, it was a political issue about some of those children that were detained in boxes or cells or something, which apparently, after it came out, it said it started with under Obama, but there's more to that. You know, those are children that are going to be returned probably, and they don't have an asylum claim. There's the people coming, remember, coming up from Central America. They come here because of economic conditions and because of the criminal conduct there. They don't meet the standard of a well-founded fear of persecution, so they don't qualify for refugee or asylum. And if they wanted to be a refugee, they'd go to the consulate rather than just crashing the border. So as you read about this, remember that there's summary exclusion at the border. You don't just come in and claim asylum. And one of the most advantageous things under Trump, and he's on his way out, so it's not an issue, but Trump managed to develop a relationship with Mexico and work with them that we've never seen before. You know, I had problems with Mexico, and I tried to get along with them, and I went to Mexico City with entourage, and but they would say to me, well, you don't stop people from leaving your country. And I would say to them, yes, but we don't run across somebody else's backyard. Come through legally. And there was a time and I'll try to be quick with this, a time in San Diego, Otay Mesa, where we were effective in shutting down the illegal immigration of Mexicans. And so the Mexicans people, not the women and children, but the young men, they could still get through. But the women and children started rushing the port of entry with the cars. They'd run right through. Border Patrol came to me and they said, you know, what are we going to do? And I said, what's your plan? They said, we're going to build a funnel with Border Patrol cars, bumper to bumper. When they come through, then we'll catch them. And I said, well, that's about as archaic as anything I've ever heard. But, you know, Caltrans wouldn't help. Nobody would help. And so I went to San Diego or Otay Mesa at the port and met with my Mexican counterparts. I said, this is what we're going to do. And here's what's going to happen. Traffic's going to back up for 50 miles and you're going to be on international television and radio embarrassed. So I'm going to give you 24 hours to stop it. It only took 4 hours and they stopped it. Mexican justice says, don't do it or we'll shoot you. And they could stop the illegal immigration across that southwest border. And I give Trump credit. He established, and he might have maneuvered with the revision of NAFTA and given them some trade breaks, but he established a working relationship so that they're cooperating with us on that southwest border, and that's a big difference. Student visas I've talked to. My time is almost up. We have some problem. It's going to be in the news with students. You've probably read about it because they want to control the students more as they come in. But we have 88,000 international students enrolled in graduate schools, you know, working on a PhD or a master's or something like that. So we've led the world in training people. By the way, that's one of the other things on a Senate bill. If somebody graduates from one of our colleges, they shouldn't have to go find an employer to sponsor them. We ought to give them a green card. We've got an investment in those people. We want to keep them, especially STEM, science, technology, engineering, and medical, and something else. Those people are valuable assets, and we want to keep them. So that's another where you just get a direct green card rather than going through employer sponsorship. So in any case, those are the students. We're just going to have a better control structured program for them. Let me think, is there something crucial that I need to bring up? I guess that'll do it. So we've got 14 minutes for questions. How do we do that, Judith?
Well, it looks like Mr. Gershon has his hand up. Do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Hi, Jean. It was a wonderful discussion. I want to ask you two questions. One, should we change the laws involving pregnancy tourism? In other words, people coming in here pregnant and delivering the babies here to become citizens. And the second question is,
Wait, Gershon, say again, what's the first one?
what about pregnancy tourism? When pregnant women come in for vacation, allegedly, then they deliver a baby here to become citizen. The second question I have is what this archaic law that if you like escape Cuba and you run by boat, then you rush in on the land and put your foot on the shore. I mean, to become a citizen or to apply for citizenship. Isn't that, can we do something about those two laws?
All right, well, I'm gonna have to ask you about the second one again, but the first one, there's been a major effort, and it goes back to Romania. That was on my watch when that monster, what was his name, Sylvia or something. Anyway, he had a program.
Kościuszko.
Right. He taxed women who didn't have babies, and so they had a lot of babies, unwanted babies in orphanages, and they became subjects for adoption. And it turned out to be a lot of them were mentally and physically disabled children. And so there has been, over the last 3 decades, there has been an effort to make sure that people who come in, and remember, people who come in go to the embassy, and the primary test is, are you going to come back when they go to the embassy? And they look at their family ties, their job, and a lot of things. And there's an effort at the embassy, I know, to make sure that you don't let somebody in who's pregnant, who's going to have a baby here. And that's the answer to that. Now, what's the second one was what?
What about this thing about landing on the land? In other words, if you are caught offshore, a couple miles offshore by the trying to come to the United States, and then so you row back as hard as you can, you try to land on the shore and put your foot on the land to get asylum.
Well, I lived through the Haitians doing that. They took to the boats and we intercepted them with the Coast Guard cutters. We talked about this yesterday, Wall Street Journal class. They used to be, well, they're taken to Guantanamo now. There's a long history behind that, but and they don't have their return. If they get on our shore, if they come into, and a lot of Cubans did this, if they get into Miami or Southern Florida, then claim asylum, then they're entitled to an asylum hearing. That, remember, they still have to show that they have well-founded fear of persecution. That's possible. We had the 1966 Cuban Act that made special provisions for those Cubans who left because of Castro. But the rest of them are under the same asylum standards on getting here and staying here. We have a lot of Cubans here. I mean, and they're Republicans down there in Florida. So are the Nicaraguans. Okay.
Jean, there's a question from Jonathan Daner. He says, can you address DACA, D-A-C-A?
Yes. Well, DACA is heart-rendering, but I talked about it. These are people who came with illegal parents. The parents were illegal immigrants, but the child was born here. And over a period of 20 years now, some of those children are adults and they still do not have an immigration status. And the idea is that we give them a pathway to citizenship. And I think that there's a lot of support. I'm in favor of that, but I kind of agree we need to address the rest of these issues at the same time into a immigration reform package and do something about e-verify and the sanctuary cities and STEM graduates that we want to keep. There's just a lot of those things that have been hanging around for 15 years. And it's time to put that whole package together and not just allow DACA kids to be singled out for.
Gene, you froze up there. Jerry Bamberger has a question when you become.
Gene, do you recall when you were prosecuting attorney, you called me to help find you a secretary? Recall you hired my recommendation, Joyce Cento.
Jerry, Gene's computer has frozen up. I'm not sure if he's hearing or seeing us right now. Hold on just a second. Let me see if I can send him a message. Oh. I think he's going to try to check back in.
Gene, can you hear me now?
Gene's not here. He's going to have to log back in. Hold on just a second, Jerry.
Okay.
Oh, there he is. Gene, can you unmute?
I'm sorry, I don't know what happened there.
Okay, Jerry Bamberger has a question for you.
Gene, you recall when you were prosecuting attorney, you called me and asked me to help you find a secretary, and you hired Joyce Cento.
I did.
She was
You
with
were
you
sorry you let her go, weren't you? How you doing, you old rascal?
Well, she was only working for me part-time because I didn't need a full-time secretary, and I recommended that you hire her, and I know she's worked for you for, I think she passed away, didn't she not?
She did, about a year ago.
Yeah, a nice lady, and I'm glad she did well with you.
She did, and then she married my chief of staff, and then I took her with me to Washington. He was the chief of staff there, and she was my secretary. She was outstanding. I'd dictate a note memo to her, and she'd type it up, and I'd say, "Well, that's not what I said," and she'd say, "Well, that's what you meant," and it was. Yeah.
Okay.
Norman Solomon has a question.
All right.
This morning on Bloomberg News, one of their one-sentence news items said that wealthy Americans are starting to think about getting a second passport. What the heck does that mean? Is that a attempted dual citizenship?
No, there's no dual citizenship for an American. Other countries can do that, but when somebody, that may not be your question. When somebody becomes a U.S. citizen, they naturalize, they swear allegiance to the United States and no other prince, potentate, king, or anybody else. So or jurisdiction. So an American gives up his allegiance to his former country. Now, if you're talking about Americans who want to leave and live someplace else, they can be dual citizens. I've got a good friend who lives in Canada, and he's still a citizen of the United States. But I don't know why they would want to leave. I guess some people are afraid of the direction we're going in with what's happening in the
I
streets.
just didn't know what that term, getting a second passport, meant.
Well, I didn't see the article, but that probably having a status in another country that they could go to in case something happens.
Okay, thanks.
Jean, Bill Livingston has a question in chat. He asks, what is the immigration status of a person here on a student visa who is not able to attend school in person due to COVID-19?
Judith, I couldn't, I heard the last of it, but not the first. Could you tell me again?
Sure. Bill Livingston has asked, what is the immigration status of a person here on a student visa who is not able to attend school in person due to COVID-19?
And they have the coronavirus?
Yeah.
Well, we would take care of that person. You were talking about a student or anybody. I would think we would take care of that person, and we have a humanitarian visa. Not only would we take care of that person, but we bring people in for medical treatment who have no other status. We just bring them in to be treated, and that's called a humanitarian visa. And so somebody who's already here and is a student would have that protection, but their student visa, that's an excuse for not going to school. And I would think that they would still be covered under their student visa.
Now, I was questioning students where the school itself is closing and or doing just virtual teaching, so they're not in person. My understanding was that they had to attend class in person.
That's been an issue, and I wish I could give you a definite answer. I think it varies, and the immigration agencies want to be sure that it's not abused. But I would think if they're really attending class, even if it's virtual, that they're covered. Now, if the school closes, then they're going to have to have another school to go to, or they lose their visa. They're not going to just blend into the population.
And then Marilyn Wiley Pittler asked, let's see, maybe this will change. Well, what about the students here but now attending university virtually? I think you might have answered that already.
Yeah, that was answered. And I'm just thinking that maybe this whole issue hopefully will be resolved with the new administration.
Well, the new administration, as I said, I read how things are going to be so much different, and I don't know that they really are. You have to remember that this Homeland Security Agency is vast. I mean, when I was there, I had 4,000 Border Patrolmen, $1.8 billion budget, but now there are 25,000 Border Patrolmen. I don't know, the budget's got to be tremendous. And it's so complicated that few people really understand the basics. You're going to be among them. But I don't know that. I think Trump took the advice from a lot of the immigration experts, both in enforcement and out. And I think Biden will do the same thing. You need
Any additional
to
questions?
unmute.
Norman, do you have another question? And John?
Yes, if a person intends to become a citizen and, announces it publicly and they go through the procedures, how many years does it take to become a citizen if you do it the right way?
Well, after you come to the United States, except for marrying a U.S. citizen, it takes 5 years. Now, if you're a refugee, it takes 2 years before you are eligible to apply for a green card. And so you've got 2 years plus 5. But if you marry a U.S. citizen, then it takes 3 years before you're eligible to naturalize.
Is there still a way to go become a citizen quicker by joining the military?
I don't believe so. It's
When
kind of
I was
interesting.
in the Army, there were guys that joined the Army from other countries, joined our military, and they could become citizens in, I don't know, 2-3 years, something like that.
Yeah, well, the Filipino war veterans were an issue for a long time, and they fought with the Americans in the Second World War. And there was always a hue and cry that they should be provided with citizenship. And on my watch, I met with a couple of hundred of them that came into my conference room, and they were, by now, these Filipino war veterans were in their 70s. And you might have known some of them. Anyway, the families were with them. And I said, well, after a while, I said, I'm in favor of these guys being citizens. Their issue was that you have to be naturalized on American soil, which meant that these guys had to get to Honolulu in order to go through a naturalization. And they were complaining that that was too expensive. And I said, well, you don't care if these necessarily that these guys are citizens. I don't see them with any hue and cry. It's with the family, the kids that wanted to get the father naturalized so that then he could bring them in. And I said, if I'm in your shoes, I pony up the money to send Dad off to Honolulu to get him naturalized. So, in any case.
Well, these were guys that had been in the French Foreign Legion and also in the German army under the Nazis. Anyway, that's it. Thanks.
Okay, we
Well,
have
there'd be a pathway for them to come into this country and take advantage of our immigration laws, but not just automatic as military personnel.
Okay, we have time for one more question. John Reichman, did you have a question?
Yeah, yes, I did. I had a question. Well, there's two questions, really. One is about what's the effectiveness of the wall, Gene? Has it accomplished anything, or you think we ought to continue with that project?
Wait, what laws?
In the wall, the border
wall.
wall down in. The second one is there any way to track people who stay beyond their visas?
In answer to the second one, since we don't have any exit control, it's the only way that somebody who leaves is detected is if they try to come in again. And then they go to the consulate and they go through some questioning, and there'll be a lot of them admit that they overstayed. Now, we have some laws that say if you, and I should have mentioned this, if you overstay your visa by 3 months, you're barred from coming back into the country for 3 years. And if you overstay by a year, you're barred for coming back for 10 years. Now, my position is, let's repeal those. I think that could be a part of the reform package. I don't see any reason somebody overstays. And, you know, I had a client once who fell in love with an American girl and he overstayed. And had he left, he'd have been barred for coming back for 3 years. Well, that kind of interrupts your life. And so I think there are reasons why we should do away with those bars on overstays. And then I think you'd find, they say that of the 11 million, 40% of them, of the 11 million illegal aliens here, 40% of them are overstays. Maybe the overstays would leave. I don't know that they really want a pathway to citizenship. So that's the overstay situation.
So we have two more.
Wall.
Roy Blair has a question. True that we do not track visa holders leaving the country, so no way of knowing who is here. I don't know.
That's what he just answered.
Can you say that again, or whose question is it?
Roy Blair, so maybe he can.
Roy, what's that? Unmute and talk to me.
Yeah, I think I am unmuted.
Yeah, you are. I can hear you.
Okay. No, that's kind of like what you just answered. The whole idea of us not having any kind of exit control, that you really don't know who's here on no matter what kind of visa they had to start with. But that's just what you just answered, you know, the last question. So you can disregard it. Thank you.
Okay.
Good seeing you.
Jane, what about the border wall?
Oh, that border wall. Yeah. Well, that wall, you know, it's kind of funny. When I first took the job as commissioner, they put up a new high-tech fence in El Paso that was bolt cutter proof. This was high-tech. And so they're just a couple hundred Mexicans that got up and pushed it right over, you know. So I don't know. Also, a lot of the illegal border entry is through tunnels. And I think we made progress on shutting some of those tunnels down. We felt as though when I was there, but it was too late in the administration. We could have shut down that southwest border for $60 million. There are 12 corridors. Then the rest of it is desert. And so I think that those responsible with the Border Patrol and the experts at Homeland Security know what they're doing. They've replaced a porous fence with one that does the job. And I think there's a long-term effort to seal that border and stop the illegal crossings. And why not? We're a sovereign nation, aren't we? We don't run across other people's borders. So anyway, that's my answer.
Okay, I think, Steve, did you have something you wanted to say? And then I think we're going to have to wrap
Hey,
it up.
let me say, can I say something, Judith? I see Sid and a lot of good friends I haven't seen for a long time. I've really enjoyed this. Jackie Lipsitz was tuned in, and I think she's gone now, but a lot of good friends, plus the Wall Street Journal gang, Jay and Harvey, the rest of them. So anyway, I've really enjoyed it. Appreciate the opportunity.
Jim White was here also, Gene, but he had to get off for a conference call.
Whoa, well, that puts me in my place.
Gene, I have one more question. And first of all, I want to thank you for doing this. It's been wonderful. But I talked to you earlier about this, about the fentanyl and that's manufactured in China. And And the Chinese are bringing this across the border, and I've heard that there's Chinese cartels actually in Mexico. And I just read an article that said that last year there was just 72,000 deaths just from overdose. That's a lot of people that have died. And the other problem with the border is that anybody could walk across the border with a dangerous virus, just like COVID or some other dangerous virus. And how do we prevent this from happening? I'm more worried about the drugs and the dangerous viruses or whatever else could kill us coming across the border. I'm not so worried about the immigrants, but how do we control this, or what can we do to stop all this?
Well, that's the reason, Steve, that it's so vitally important that we control that southwest border. You know, there are some people, and my good friend Steve Legomsky is one of them, who's in favor of open borders. I don't think we're ready for that. You know, we're not ready for one world. I like the effort in that direction, but as long as there's terrorism and drugs and people smuggling things in, we're going to have to be a sovereign nation and do what we can to make sure people are here legally and they follow our laws. And I also, this will surprise you, but I spent a lot of time in China. I did those visas. I brought in, well, I did a lot of investor visas, not from China, but Taiwan. And I went through adoptions in China. I went to all the embassies there. There are half a dozen of them. And I like the Chinese. And I was there when they told me they wanted to be the second biggest economy, and they've achieved that. And so it bothers me that we're at such odds with the Chinese right now. You know, my son went to Stanford and had a degree in product design, and when he graduated, half that class were Asian Americans, Chinese. And a lot of them went to the Silicon Valley. They're a big part, the Asian Indians and the Chinese are a big part of our economy and our success. And I think a good relationship with the Chinese, now maybe they reneged on us or even betrayed us with that coronavirus, but I hope that we can patch that up and become working partners with them.
And we convince them to stop making the fentanyl, which is 100 and heroin.
I couldn't understand that, Steve. Say it again.
And we convince them to stop manufacturing the fentanyl. 90% of it comes from China. And it's
Yeah.
that's 100 times more addictive than heroin. Once you take it, you can't get off of it.
Yeah.
Jean, thank you so very much. This was really enjoyable and so informative. And I want to thank you, and hopefully maybe we can have you back again.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good holiday, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Mhm.